Ladies and gentlemen, back to another episode of the Supernatural Files. While we dive into the unexplained and the supernatural realm itself, today we are venturing into a deity that is known very familiar within the South African lore named Anansi. Spider tales are known throughout West Africa, but the tale of Anansi originated from Ghana are the best known as Anansi, as the Anansi's name comes from the Akan language, also known Anansi is also known as spider. They later spread to the West Indies, Suriname, and Sierra Leone, where they were introduced to Jamaican Maroons and the Netherlands Antilles, also Kyrgyz, Aruba, and Benin. Anansi is a Akan folklore character and the god of stories, wisdom, knowledge, and trickery. Most commonly depicted as a spider. He is also known to be the god of knowledge of all stories, taking the role of a familiar character known as the trickster. He is also the most important character of all of West Africa, African American and West Indian culture. Originating in Ghana, the spider's tales were transmitted to the Caribbean by way of the transatlantic slave trade. Anansi is best known for his ability to triumph and outsmart bigger opponents through his use of cunning, creativity, and wit. Despite taking on a trickster role, Anansi is often portrayed as being a protagonist due to his ability to transform his weakness into virtues. He is among several West African tricksters, including Bear Rabbit and Luwak Rabbit, who have persisted in cultural globally. Now that we have gone into the backstory of the Anansi, let's get into the origin of Anansi. Spider tales are found extensively throughout West Africa, but the Anansi tale originating from Ghana are among the best known, as the Anansi's name comes from the Akan language translated to be known as spider. Anansi is depicted in many different ways and with different names, from Anansi to Kulka Anansi, and Anansi with the CY to the New World iterations Ba Anansi, Kumpa Nazi, or just Nazi, Aunt Nazi, or Sis Nazi. While many depicted him as being an animal, Anansi has many representations, which includes an anthropomorphic spider with a human face, or conversely, a human with spider-like features, such as 8 legs. It is said in some Akan myths that Anansi becomes the creator. So it could be either roles, changing similar to Bobowisi becoming the god of lightning with Awua, or Odoman Kumos Sonson being reincarnated in the name of Anansi after Awua kills him, supported by how Sonson works via the father. There are many narratives of powers in the life of Anansi. He is credited in some stories with the creation of the sun, the moon, and the planets. In others, it is said that Anansi is the one who brought writing, agriculture, and hunting to Earth, teaching humans the processes of how to take care of themselves on Earth. So smart was Anansi, according to one narrative, he collected all the wisdom of the word in a kabalash to hold for himself, because he did not trust humans with such knowledge and information. However, wisdom and knowledge kept spilling out of the calabash, and he soon saw how futile it became when the knowledge and wisdom spilled out. Soon saw how futile it was for one person to yet know all this knowledge and wisdom and to hold it for himself. In fact, it is far better, as Anansi understood, for knowledge and wisdom to be spread among all the people. So that is exactly what he did. Another well-known tale depicts how Anansi was able to win with a collection of stories or wisdom narratives from Namine, the mighty creator and sky god. In one version of the story, Anansi, in his form of a spider, approached Nyami and asked him to point him the king of all wisdom narrative. Nyami was amazed at the audacity of Anansi and thought that if he had the courage to approach the sky god in such a direct fashion, then he might be given a chance to prove himself. Naime said to Anansi, "If you can catch and capture the jaguar who was dagger-like teeth, the horns who sting like wildfire, the invincible fairy of the forest, you will be king of the wisdom narratives." Nyami thought he gave Anansi a challenge that he would refuse, because the likelihood of anyone achieving success with such a challenge was very slight. However, Anansi agreed to the challenge. Anansi went to the jaguar and asked him to play a game that allowed Anansi to tie him up with a rope. So the jaguar agreed. So Anansi got the rope and tied up the jaguar. Anansi tricked the hornets by telling them it was raining. Indeed, Anansi could make it rain. And he told the hornets that they could hide in a calabash that Anansi had prepared for them. Once they went into the calabash, Anansi put the lid on it. He told the invisible fairy to fight a tar baby. And when the fairy did, he was stuck to the tar, unable to move. Anansi took all of his prey to Nyami and showed that he was able to accomplish everything that was asked of him. Whereupon Nyami named Anansi the king of all wisdom narratives. No one has ever been able to exceed the achievements of the wise personality. Since the time he was made the king of all wisdom narratives. Now that we have gotten into the origin, let's get into the powers and abilities of Anansi. Anansi is often depicted in folk tales as a participant in rituals performed by various deities who bestow upon him supernatural powers. Some traditions often portray him as the son of the earth's mother. In some other cultures, he is a lesser deity, although he is often portrayed as a prophet in Akan spirituality. His followers do not recognize him as such. Instead, they honor him as a healer, a symbol of wisdom, and the creator of the first human body. Instead of being a symbol of resistance, he was often regarded as a symbol of survival. This is because he used his cunning and trickery to turn the tables on his opponents. Stories of Anansi helped enslaved Africans establish a sense of continuity in their lives, which allowed them to assert their identity within the confines of their captivity. Stories of Anansi were part of oral tradition and he was regarded as having the most wisdom and skill in speech. The tradition eventually encompassed various kinds of fables, and tales were also introduced to the world through the slaves who were brought to the New World via the transatlantic slave trade. As Jamaica had the largest concentration of enslaved Ashanti in the Americas, they tend to have better documented stories and proverbs. He was referred to Koako Anansi, even during times of slavery. This is because the word Anansi is known as Koaka Anansi. Anansi's role in the lives of Africans go well beyond slavery. He also evolved into a character who is regarded as a classical hero. Thank you all for joining me as we dived into this African creature that went from a trickster to being a hero. How many of these tricksters can be turned into heroes? We'll never know the exact amount because these stories are seemingly endless. I want to thank you all for joining me in this adventure of the Supernatural Files while we dived into the character of Anansi. If you like this video, be sure to hit the red subscribe button down below for more. Hit it with the thumbs up, click the notification bell so you are notified whenever a future video is uploaded, and leave a comment down below. Like always, I'll see you guys in the next Supernatural Files. I'll see ya.